Hey guys, today is day 23 for Celiac Awareness Month. My name is Tracy, otherwise known as Healthy Happy Momsy, and I am here answering your questions and discussing topics regarding celiac for Celiac Awareness Month. Excuse any fun noise in the background or any distractions. My trusty assistant, the three-legged Belle, is trying to figure out exactly where she wants to get comfy and hang out while I do this go live. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for those of you that have commented, shared, and asked questions. I greatly appreciate it. For those of you that are finding value in these go lives, I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to be able to help you. And my dog is trying to jump up on the couch right next to me. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Anyway, so today's topic is, should the whole house go gluten-free? So we're going to discuss that, and it's going to kind of depend on the circumstance. So who am I? What kind of background do I have to be able to share with you guys, to be able to have an opinion on this? What research has gone into this? So in case you're wondering that, as I said, Healthy Happy Momsy is my business, and I am a certified health and wellness coach. I've been doing that, actually officially certified, for the last 2 years. And before that, I was in pharmaceutical sales for 17 years. My daughter and I found out that we had some autoimmune stuff going on 10 years ago in 2009. She was officially, or she was not officially diagnosed. It was kind of a diagnosis of ruling other stuff out, but I was officially diagnosed with celiac. So I've been dealing with the whole gluten-free lifestyle for my daughter and me for the last 10 years, and then got certified. And I get to work with people as far as figuring out how to eat healthier, whether they're gluten-free or not. And that means working with them on lifestyle, exercise, attitude, nutrition, as well as for those that want the simpler meal planning that has made my life easier, my family's life easier. I work with people with that as well. So in discussing the question, should the whole household go gluten-free? This is a super hot topic because, as I said, the answer depends. There's so many different variables that go into this. So the household, you want to consider a few different factors, such as how old are the people that are in the kitchen that are prepping? And then also how, what's their maturity level and how careful are they? So I will say this, that my household for years has been completely gluten-free. Now that we're still separate, but as far as different households, but I will say this, the only gluten that now comes into my house is like when my boyfriend every now and then wants some beer, which is usually when he mows the grass. I'm not going to complain about that. However, at his house, it is his house. And so for the most part, he does tend to eat gluten-free, but there are certain things that he does want, and with his job, which requires some travel, and that also means being able to have some meals that are easy to eat on the go. There's some of that will include pasta. So yeah, it's his house. Absolutely, he has pasta, but we do take proper precautions when it comes to cross-contamination, things like that. So that's why I say you want to keep in mind, what are the ages of the people that are dealing with food preparation, things like that. In my personal opinion, as a mom and as a health and wellness coach, and as somebody that wants to help you keep your sanity, I do believe in having the kids from even a young age getting more involved with the meal planning. And when it comes to that, that means that you're more likely going to need to take the precautions to have a gluten-free kitchen. That doesn't mean that everybody in the household needs to be completely gluten-free. If they don't have celiac, absolutely they should be able to eat gluten, but I would try to restrict the gluten to outside of the home. When you guys go out to eat, when you find safe places for the person in your household who has celiac, and that the people who don't have celiac, that they can eat whatever they want. So keep that in mind. I know there are also different circumstances like roommate situations, and you can't just room with somebody and say, hey, because we're living together and we're sharing everything, I'm going to expect you to go gluten-free. No, that's not going to happen. But you are going to need to take some precautions on things like that. So what are some of those things that you want to think through? Well, think about where the contamination is most likely going to happen. Okay, that's going to be in things that absorb the gluten molecules. So that would be things like if you're using Tupperware to reheat your food, you're going to want the safe food for the gluten or for the gluten-free person, so that's celiac safe. And then for the other people, you're going to want your stuff labeled, whether you go with different colors of Tupperware, different colored lids, different systems, things like that. For your cooking utensils, you're going to want to make sure that that they're not porous. You don't want plastic or bamboo utensils. You don't want plastic or bamboo cutting boards, or you want them to be completely separate and identifiable. If you go with a certain color, belongs to the person who has celiac, this is dedicated gluten-free, things like that will help. And then when things get used, they have to get washed. They have to be washed at a good temperature, hot water, dishwasher, that type of thing. There's not a getting to use it a second time, leaving it out, oh, I just cut some bread on this cutting board, I'll just leave it out. And then the person with celiac uses that. Okay, you probably are going to want to have different cutting boards, things like that. I know that I've seen where a lot of people will use a certain color. So like maybe the red stuff is the stuff that is safe for the person with celiac, or maybe you want to use like a Sharpie to mark something on there. Things like that would be super helpful. The toaster, if you use a toaster, that has to be totally separate. One way that we have gone around that actually in our household is I don't have a traditional toaster, I have a toaster oven. I do actually like to use it to heat things up outside of the microwave, just kind of depending on what it is. I'm not going to say not to use the microwave because we do use the microwave in our household. But with the toaster oven, there's less of a chance of cross-contamination. If you're going to use a regular toaster, you're going to want to use toaster bags because you're never going to get all the gluten crumbs out. You're just not, okay? When you use the microwave though, speaking of, you want to always use plates in the microwave, and that way you're not just gonna, thaw out like, I don't know, for us, like because of the gluten-free bread, because of it being a little bit more expensive, we do tend to freeze it. So yeah, sometimes we'll microwave thaw it. Well, microwave thawing it, put it on a plate, then put it in the microwave. Just as the person who has the bread with gluten, put it on a plate, put it in the microwave if you've got to thaw something out. Okay, so you want to take certain precautions like that. Like I said, the plasticware, things like that, that's especially if you're microwaving something, that's going to absorb the molecules. You're really not going to want to do that. Things that can involve double dipping, those have to be separate. Those have to be labeled. I would, in my humble opinion, I would be, using 2 different colors so that way it's not, oh, well, I forgot to put a sticker on it or whatever. Use a certain color sticker for the one that has been glutened and the one that hasn't been glutened. That way you're always looking for the color to make sure. So things like a jar of peanut butter, sun butter, nut butters, whatever, jars of jelly if you happen to do sandwiches. In my household, like I said, the only person in the households here that's likely to do a sandwich would be my daughter. So peanut butter, jelly, things like that, we pretty much know those are going to be gluten-free. So that's not really an issue. Things like mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, stuff like that. If you can do it in a squeezable jar, that's better. But you have to know, don't go wiping it on the bread. So this is especially big as we're coming up on Memorial Day weekend, thinking about those cookouts. If you're going to a cookout, not only would I recommend bringing your own bread, your own meat, that kind of thing, I would also consider bringing little packets of whatever condiments you want. And that way you're not getting in line behind, I don't know, Joe Blow that was putting ketchup on his hot dog, on his hot dog bun, and then he just wiped it on the bread. You just don't want that in you. If you've got celiac, that's going to cause some issues. So make sure that you take that into consideration when you're deciding, should the whole household go gluten-free? Well, how many people are in the kitchen? What's the maturity level of the people in the kitchen? And if you're going to have a mixed kitchen, everything needs to be labeled. All of the shared utensils, I wouldn't have certain things that are shared, such as anything that's plastic, bamboo, anything that is porous. Those need to be completely separate. A lot of people will even use things like pizza cutters, stuff like that, having those completely separate. Just make sure that it is decided. And then also the discussion has got to happen at a family level or household level as far as what are the requirements and what are the expectations. So this is one of the things that definitely happens in a lot of households where there's a mix of people who are gluten-free and people who eat gluten. First of all, you need to make sure the people who can eat gluten understand the difference in cost for the items that are gluten-free. Okay, I've brought this up before. So things like the cake mix, it used to be like 3 times as much. I've actually seen it lately in some places where it can be 4 to 5 times as much for the gluten-free cake mix, the exact same as the regular cake mix. I came across that when I was actually trying to prep something for one of my daughter's school parties. But things like your gluten-free treats, the things that are designated gluten-free, there's a markup on that. you need to make sure to have that discussion with the members of the household. And a lot of the time what people will do is they will have their own little cabinet that is, specifically the gluten-free cabinet. And the people that eat gluten, if you run out of your own treats, you don't get to go eat the gluten-free treats, okay? That $1 or $2 loaf of bread, I have no idea how much loaves of bread cost these days, sorry. Whatever that loaf of bread costs that has gluten in it, guess what? That gluten-free loaf of bread can run around $7. Leave the gluten-free stuff alone, okay? If you're a gluten eater, leave the gluten-free stuff alone. It's just, and on top of the price markup, there's also likely going to be less content in there. So there have been so many different examples where we've looked at like Bisquick mix, and there's a huge upcharge on that, but the amount in the box is, maybe half. So it's like, let's pay 2 to 3 times as much for half the contents. So make sure you have those discussions if you decide to go with a mixed household. But that's also to say, if you decide that the whole house goes gluten-free, then those gluten-free treats and gluten-free snacks, you've made the commitment that everybody in the household has access to that. So you've got to make those decisions as far as what's best for your household. For things like that, especially if you're doing like, I had my daughter start preparing her own lunches around 3rd, 4th grade. I think 3rd grade is when I kind of transitioned to showing her how to make the lunch, what my expectations were with what goes into the lunch each day and her snacks. And there are going to be things that are going to be individually packaged. If stuff is individually packaged and you're prepping lunches, things like that, I don't know, granola bars or something that comes to mind, protein bars, things like that, just make sure that they're clearly labeled. Maybe there's different color bins in the pantry for who can have what. And if you're putting it in the lunchbox, just don't bother opening it. They can open it at school, unless you're dealing with very small kids, but then have a talk with the teacher. This is just what's easier. We keep everybody in our household safe and healthy. So those are my tips for today as far as whether your whole household should go gluten-free or not. It is an individual decision. It is a discussion that must happen at a household level. And if you decide to have a combined gluten-free household, then you must have things clearly labeled, clearly designated. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If there are other topics that you want me to address, please send me a message, comment below. Let me know what I've not yet addressed. I've been trying to get to them. Today is, like I said, day 23. I can't believe we're almost at the end of the month. And of course, all of the Go Live content will be transferred over to my blog. I do have my latest blog post up as far as the review for our weekend getaway in Asheville. Had some great experiences, especially Pizzana restaurant in Asheville. So amazing. If you go to Asheville, you have to go there. 100% dedicated gluten-free restaurant. And then I actually learned that there is an ice cream shop that really does take some great precautions, Ben & Jerry's. And then we also had melon mushrooms. So anyway, the reviews are on my recent blog post for eandmegfree.com, and I will post the link below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you find this valuable, please share it with other people. And tomorrow's topic, gluten-free expos. This is one of my favorite things. It's also kind of a hot button because this is where I'm going to have some precautions based on some of the other things that I've shared with you guys and based on being a health and wellness coach. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have an amazing day and stay healthy. All right.